they'll take it. No excuses. Whatever it is in the box score. 8-3, that's out of nowhere. They were just being totally shut down in this game. Mike Schopp here. Bulldog is off today. Let's click on the Atlanta Falcons, who the Bills will visit on Monday night. Not a team that there's a lot of history with around here, but should be an interesting game. Joe Patrick with me from 92.9 The Fan in Atlanta. Hi, Joe.
How's it going, Mike?
Good. Thank you for your time today. What are these Falcons so far? I was just talking with our Sal Capaccio about them a little bit, and he's like, if you look at their scores, they might be hard to figure out.
Yeah, it's kind of been a mixed bag for the team so far through 4 games, and I guess it makes sense that they're 2-2 because of it. It's kind of one of the interesting things about it is that it just has not been the team we really expected coming into the season. Basically, the blueprint for the Falcons coming into the season was you got to have a top 10 offense behind Michael Penix, who the team had a lot of confidence in, and then you hope to get about a league average defense out of some of these young rookies and some of these new pieces under a new defensive coordinator, Jeff Ulbrich. And you figure that was going to be the kind of formula that they needed in order to mount a challenge in the NFC South. And what we've seen so far is an offense that has really sputtered and finally got on track really for the first time, I think, truly in week 4 against the Commanders. But it's the defense that I think is really giving people down here a lot of confidence in what this team can potentially be this season, given how good they've been through these opening 4 games, just creating pressure, which has been a struggle for this franchise for decades, honestly, Mike. And, so that's been encouraging to see. But again, I think a lot of this comes down to the offense and whether they're going to be able to continue what they did in week 4 or whether it's going to be more of a reversion back to what they were in more, I would say, weeks 1 through 3, truly, which is an offense that just has been really kind of flummoxed by these kind of too high safety looks that those teams were giving them. The Commanders did not really do that, and the team was able to take advantage.
Yeah, as Sal mentioned, I mentioned Sal already, first in the league on defense, net yards per pass attempt, 4.7. So Atlanta is hitting it right there. The Bills, Joe, have been kind of a puzzle, too, on defense. They went into Sunday night's game giving up 6 yards per carry, but then in the game against New England, they were stronger against the run, but they got lit up pretty much by Stephon Diggs in the game. So they're kind of I think we'd say we're unsure about their quality when it comes to defense. I saw the Falcons play the Sunday night game in Minnesota in week 2, and my partner is not here today to talk about this, but he has just this running thing where he's like never watched Bijan Robinson. And I'm a big fantasy player. I've watched a lot of Bijan Robinson, and I thought his talent was fully on display in that game. Algier gets the touchdown late, but still, Robinson seems like the real thing.
He is absolutely incredible in every sense of the word. And I would start just by saying, he is as nice of a guy off the field talking to him in person in the locker room as he is talented of a football player that we've seen between the lines on Sundays. But, yeah, speaking of that, I mean, it's one of those things where it's like, what can this guy not do, really, is the question. I mean, right now, Mike, Bijan Robinson leads the Falcons in both rushing yards and receiving yards. He's the team's leading receiver and rusher so far this season. And, exemplified by literally the third play of the Falcons season, he takes a little check down, goes 50 yards per touchdown. And that's just kind of the electrifying ability that he has. And he's also, not only is he able to kind of beat you and, with the long speed on some of those catches, but he can also just absolutely make you miss in a phone booth. And, James Cook is kind of similar with the jump cuts and those types of things. But, I mean, I think Bijan and Cook, honestly, I think are like 2 of the best in the NFL at those little cuts that allow them to, get those added yards that you need. And he had another spectacular rushing touchdown against the Commanders in week 4 where he showed off that ability to jump cut. And so, yeah, the Falcons are definitely going to be relying on him for sure. And I think Michael Penix, too. Michael Penix, like I said earlier, a quarterback that the organization has a lot of confidence in, and I think you could see on the tape last year why they have that confidence. But, when you see the struggles that he had in these first 3 games, I think it really shines the importance on getting the running game going and making sure defenses are having to be keyed in at all times on Bijan Robinson that will allow Michael Penix to flourish. And then I think the other aspect to Bijan that's different, I think, than a lot of backs is that they are going back to what they did with him, what Arthur Smith really did with him in 2023, where, Arthur Smith, when he was drafted, he described him, he's not a running back, he's a home run hitter. And they wanted to kind of use him as a bit of a gadget all over the field. And then last year, they wanted to kind of go back to the nuts and bolts of just being a running back. But what we saw, especially in week 4, was them start to utilize him a lot more as a receiver out, split out wide in some interesting sets where they might come out in base personnel, but the tight end is like kind of riding shotgun, sidecar in the shotgun next to Michael Penix. So doing some interesting things where they can move around guys like Bijan Robinson and Kyle Pitts, who's also kind of maneuverable in that sense with regards to like being able to use him differently in formations.
Right. Yeah, that was super annoying 2 years ago when they kept giving Tyler Algier the ball. And part of that was because he wasn't bad. Like, he's not bad. So
right.
He was efficient. And, again, fantasy-wise, Robinson, really, the ceiling was kind of capped. But the receiving is the dream when it comes to that. And he's putting up those numbers. Joe Patrick, 92.9, The Fan in Atlanta. My guest, I'm Mike Schopp. Bulldog is off today. So what about the timing of the bye week here for the Falcons, Joe? I mean, week 5, as early as it gets, ends up being 15 days between their last game and this game against Buffalo. You're talking about how many different looks they might be able, or they've shown already. I guess this is a great spot for them to be able to add to that.
Yeah, I think the bye week is like in the immediate term here against, a quality team like Buffalo, and then with San Francisco coming up. I do think it helps them in that regard. But I think when you look at the course of the entire season and just like looking at the schedule in totality for the Falcons, I think if you were to ask some of the Falcons brass in their training facility up there in Flowery Branch, Georgia, they may not have been too pleased with the way that things shook out, because ultimately, I know this is in regards to the Monday night game, but it's like you have the bye week and then you're playing on Monday night, so you just kind of have like an extra day on top of your bye week, and then that creates a shorter week going for you the next week, where you then also have to travel to the West Coast. So there's some logistical kind of issues that this team is going to have to deal with, and those might become more problematic down the road when at that point you're playing, 6-7 consecutive weeks heading down the stretch of the season. I do think that it helps them, though, in the immediate term. I mean, they had A.J. Terrell, their best cornerback by far, and I think one of the most underrated corners in the NFL. He's been out with a hamstring injury since that Week 2 game against the Minnesota Vikings. They're hoping to get him back, and that bye week will have obviously given them an extra week of rest to allow him to get healthy again. So in some respects, it will help them get some guys back and be fresh for this one, but they're going to have their hands full later on in the season dealing with the schedule, because it's going to get, very long. Obviously, I don't think anybody needs kind of any explanation about how just brutal this game is, and they're going to have to be on top of kind of their body prep, honestly, as they go forward in the season. I know that's a lot of guys are talking about that kind of being top of mind as they come back out of this bye week, or this early bye week. And I don't know what to do with myself in an October bye week. It's bizarre.
Yeah, I know. It's too early. It's too early. But if you didn't mention it, you may have. I'm sorry if I missed it, but you also have a trip to Berlin in there.
Yeah, that's right. So they have to travel to the West Coast twice, plus go into Berlin. So yeah, they've got a lot of travel.
Right, and the bye week is over, so teams have the choice, I think, whether they want their bye after the trip international, and I guess the Falcons chose no, or is that not correct?
I could actually offer some clarity there, because that's what I thought as well, and now it turns out that there are so many international games that the NFL is basically not able to accommodate all the requests. So now it is officially you request the bye week after or around the international game. And typically they are given if they can be accommodated, but for whatever reason, that was not able to be done this year for the Falcons.
Yeah, thank you for that. When the Bills went to London a couple of years ago, I think that then they had the choice, and they chose not to take the bye. They came home and played the Giants the next week and were a huge favorite and barely won. They got out of that game barely. So I don't know. It's always easier in hindsight to see what you should have done. Darnell Mooney for this game, Joe. What do you think?
He's questionable. There's been reporting from some of the national reporters saying that they expect him to get back, that the bye week was going to allow him to get back. I would think that will be the case, that he will kind of be on the field. But I'll tell you, Mike, he's just not been anywhere near the player that he was last year. He's coming off of a shoulder injury that he literally injured himself diving for a football on the first day of training camp when they were not in pads. And The rust, I think, has really shown since he's come back. I think they tried to get him back as soon as possible because they really do need him. He is a core part of that wide receiver group. But you could just see that it's not quite there yet. I don't know if the connection is totally there with Penix. Obviously, there's some more adjustments that you might have to have as a receiver with a left-handed quarterback as well, and they didn't have a ton of reps last year. In fact, it's worth noting that Michael Penix was not taking any reps with any of these starting receivers until literally that week that he was named the starting quarterback, and it would have been that Wednesday that he started taking those reps with those guys. Now he's also thrown with them over the course of the offseason and such, but Darnell Mooney, the Falcons will obviously like to have him out there and certainly presents a problem, but I don't know if he will be operating at his maximum capacity, even if he is able to play.
All right, very good, Joe. Bills and Falcons next Monday night. Thanks for your time and insight.
All right. Thanks, Mike. Appreciate it.
You're welcome. At JAPatrick200 on Twitter for more on the Falcons. Yeah, the Mooney, it makes sense. Like, he got hurt so early, and they were a little bit, I don't know, maybe I missed it, but I feel like there was some confusion about how long he was going to miss. A guy can get hurt like that and just never get right. The season starts, the pressure builds. It feels like he's somebody that really opens up even more for London and even Pitts in that offense. So he might be important on Monday. Bulldog is off today. This is Mike Schopp at 803-0550. You're listening to WGR.